to the International AIDS Conference. The world's largest HIV/AIDS conference took place in Montreal, Canada, and virtually from the 29th of July to the 2nd of August, which was just yesterday. Now, at this conference, leading scientists, policymakers, and activists from around the world came together to discuss policies and lessons learned through research and programs aimed at ending the HIV epidemic. At this year's conference, one of the South African representatives is Shout It Now, a local nonprofit company that empowers youth to own their sexuality. Shout It Now has been selected for its original and highly effective Mohel. Is that correct? I do believe that's how they pronounce it. Mohel. Get Your Life Pack, a multimedia campaign within the conference's social and behavioral science track. Now, there are news stories and there are newsmakers. We believe this particular topic is one of them. And that's why we have the interview. Thanks for joining us. Founded in 2007, Shout Now is a South African nonprofit, as I said earlier, and this innovative social enterprise currently provides free integrated mobile community-based HIV prevention and other sexual and reproductive health services, gender-based violence services as well, and life skills programs in hard-to-reach communities in Gauteng and the Northwest provinces of South Africa. Shout's comprehensive offering is for both men and women aged 12 to 49 years. Now, to talk to us a little bit more about this and their outing at the 24th International AIDS Conference is Dr. Albert Machinda, the COO of Shout It Now. Welcome to the interview.
Thank you, Titi, for having me. It's really good to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us. It must have been quite an outing.
Oh, yeah. And especially this year, with us now slowly getting out of really great to have everyone come together to discuss what's really critical for HIV.
It does feel like we are coming to a time when discussing one's sexuality is no longer exactly taboo, even though in a lot of cultures, it's a no-brainer. It's not a conversation at all. Do you still face off with these kinds of situations in your provinces?
Yeah, Titi, it's very interesting. I think we're making progress. But very slow, probably discussing sex and sexuality. I think to you, and mostly from an African perspective, sex and sexuality are taboo topics, and generally people don't feel comfortable talking about whether it's at a family setting, whether it's at a religious gathering, whether it's at school, because we have grown up to believe that sex is taboo. You don't talk. That's where we come in, and that's where we want to be able to come through with communities and societies to break that taboo.
So participation in this particular event, what was the aim? What was the goal for having Shout It Now participate?
Yeah, so for us, really was to share the lessons that we learned through Mogel Get Your Life Pack, because those were critical lessons that we think are lessons for other geographies. Of course, we learned these lessons in South Africa and the provinces that are coming out of that are relatable to most places, and we thought it was very important for us. We're lucky to get selected to be able to share this lesson, and also to showcase it now to the wider audience, international audience, and bring a voice to the big control.
Now, as a medical practitioner, Dr. Albert Machinda is a leader in global and public health with over 15 years of experience providing strategic oversight to large and complex national programs in Southern Africa. This is it feels like a lot of weight to have on your shoulders, especially with I feel like most people that do this feel called to do it. How did this all begin for you?
Interesting journey, Titi, because I'm actually originally from Zimbabwe. I have a passion for equity, and one of my passions in life is equal world. I found health to be one of the equal areas and equal areas that we have to deal with. And so my see health equity, and I've gone through that journey from being a clinician in global health and leading programs, because I see that there is a huge opportunity is to make sure that we pull ourselves up, we pull each other up, and provide require equitably, and make sure that we create a generation that's healthier fully to either national and international discourse.
So internationally, this information, especially with regards HIV and sexual reproductive health programming, is received differently all over the world. Can you sort of break down how you've been able to receive feedback and how you've been able to turn that feedback and keep progressing forward?
Yeah, thanks, Titi. I believe, and one of the, because HIV and AIDS has been here for decades, and we continue to fight against it. And I think it's a time that the feedback or utilize the needs of the people that are suffering AIDS, or people that are really affected it, and that's our communities. And so I think for us to move forward from where we are, where we're coming from an area of experts, we had a top-down view of how we provide. It's now very important to listen to the people affected on what and how they want us to do it, and what would make them feel better, what would make them discuss open manner, and what would make us all be able to contribute fully. And so getting that feedback from the clients and utilizing it to programs on how you engage clients, on how you bring about the arena is very important.
So it's about the approach. It's about how you've been able to approach them.
Yes, it's definitely about the approach. Because the world we live in, one of the biggest issues with HIV has been this. Even though we've had it for decades, there's still, depending on where you are and where you're coming from, and with the advent of a lot of information is flowing, and for people to be able to see, make sure that they're taking in the correct information, it's very difficult. So providing where they can confidently share information, where they can confidently get information, is absolutely critical. The ability to open up spaces and bring to how we fund HIV programs, to how we provide the services that we should be providing to them is important.
So, to the best of my knowledge now, I say to the best of my knowledge for a reason, because it does feel like there's been a lag in information in certain sectors of society. And when you see the word epidemic beside HIV, maybe it doesn't connect as much as the coronavirus did connect in terms of epidemic numbers. It does feel like people are making the assumption that there has been a constant downtrend. Now, I'm making this assumption because we haven't really seen any charts or numbers publicized. Okay, this is what is happening. These are the people that are, still living with the virus, and also what the treatment is like. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, and that's a very important point. I'm involved this space for not doing the best our populations understand. And I think our approaches. So I can tell you, as you are aware, the HIV has been really a huge epidemic in African countries. So in the general population, mostly in African countries, historically, we are seeing trends of increase in other continents. Now, what has happened in the general population, we do see a stabilization and trend in new infections, but there are populations and specific groups that we are seeing infections. For example, adolescent girls and young women. The trend there's not HIV remains a problem. We actually see either stagnation or even an infection. LGBTQI population, that there's no stabilization in HIV there. There is a trend in that population. People that inject drugs, and we have now HIV is slowly coming from a general to an epidemic that's concentrated or that's not controlled populations. And so it's very important for us as we move forward to really sure that it is targeted to those populations, and we have maintaining and ensuring that the general population is controlled.
Okay, so I'm looking at what was said by the International AIDS Society. What they're doing is to convene, educate, and advocate for a world in which HIV no longer presents a threat to public health and individual well-being. So I think maybe what I was trying to say earlier is people don't see it as a threat anymore. So when you hear that, what do you say to people that believe this?
It is still a huge threat for us. Just for example, in 2021, we had 4,000 new infections on a daily basis of HIV. HIV with co-infections.
Could you say that one more time? Could you say that one more time? How many more infections?
4,000 new infections worldwide on a daily basis.
4,000.
4,000. Titi. 4,000. And so that's a huge number. That's a huge. So people need to understand. And I think what happens, because HIV have had programming that's been there to control it, there is a tendency for fatigue to talking about HIV, fatigue to listening about HIV, and then and other epidemics that come along then push HIV in the back. And it's important for us at this stage to understand that is for us, HIV and is a huge threat to us, and we really need to continue make sure that we're controlling, we're putting prevention measures, we're controlling on a treatment drive and innovations to control the disease. And so we're not yet time to relax.
Definitely not time to relax. And for those that are just tuning in, this is the interview. My name is Titi Oyinsan, and we are having a conversation with Dr. Albert Machinda, a COO of Shout It Now. The team was part of the 24th International AIDS Conference, which ended yesterday. And there's quite a lot of information we've been able to discuss. Now, they have a comprehensive offering for both men and women aged 12 to 49 years. However, with adolescent girls and young women disproportionately affected by both gender-based violence and HIV, a new membership group called EYACO. Did I get that right? EYACO?
Yes.
Could you pronounce it properly for me? EYACO Mogel?
EYACO Mogel.
Mogel. Okay. Now,
Yes,
Eyako
Ayako
Mogel
Mogel.
has been created specifically for females aged 15 to 24. And this group rewards and celebrates healthy behaviors through tools, resources, information, support, and rewards. So that feels like a lot of work. Healthy behaviors, first of all, I'd like you to define what healthy behaviors represent.
All right. Now, you will notice, and I'll just start with a bit of background and why specifically this previous point I mentioned that we do realize that HIV in the general population have been stabilized or going down of new infections, but girls and young women, which are girls age 15 to 24, that's going down. In some places it's increasing, other places it's stagnant. Target that age group if we are to control HIV and AIDS, right? So that's the first thing. As an organization, we involved in the HIV prevention space, a plethora of services aimed at one, building agency in the adolescent community. And how are we doing that? We're providing programs that enable them to understand, to have knowledge on HIV and AIDS, to really build a family structure and make sure UIW understands HIV and AIDS, make sure the community understands HIV and AIDS. It's also aimed at making sure that, because we know the inequalities in society, adolescent girls and young women at a disadvantage and a predisposing factor to things that I'm talking about. So we're trying to tackle those through creating programs for economic strengthening for W. We then do not stop there. Now, because we have built this, we then want them to make decisions on healthy behaviors. So they that are informed, that are independent, and decisions that are based, right? And so decisions on whether they should have sex, for example. That's a should say have sex without external influence, and what protection they should use, what they need to do, and understand whether they need to finish school, and all that encompasses making those decisions and making sure that they're without influence. And additionally, we then offer them some of these biomedical service, family planning services, HIV prevention medication in the form of laxes. We also offer gender-based violence services, and we offer HIV.
So support is one thing, but it does feel like you can only support those who are aware. Now, in terms of awareness usually equals to money, and with a social enterprise such as yours, it does feel like there's a lot of donors fatigue out there. And I'm wondering how Shout It Now has been able to manage this.
Yeah, and related to your earlier question, the question on whether HIV is still an epidemic, and said it is huge. In the HIV space of COVID, of course, the primary donors had prior and the competing priorities, and sometimes that does happen. But I must say, in the past few years, we have seen an uptick in donors really coming through, that we go through this last, I would call it the final mile of controlling. One of the things that as global health people, we haven't done enough of putting it across to people that, for example, if you're HIV positive nowadays and your viral load is controlled, then you will not pass on the disease to the next person. So that encourages people to go on treatment, because treatment is, and so if we're able to make sure that we have donors coming through, I don't think this is a problem for only donors. It's essential for governments to come through and make sure that they're chipping in and bringing in the control. Also important for the private sector, additionally, to understand that for the private sector to have a healthy nation, and a healthy nation in our instance, especially in you won't have a healthy nation without the control of HIV and AIDS. So I think it's a multi that's required to make sure that we act to the end of the final map.
Okay, so there's been a lot of work your team has done, and kudos to you. I have some information here. It says here that Shout It Now's multimedia campaign ran for 6 weeks. That was between August and October 2021, and reached over 3 million people and resulted in nearly 7-fold increase in HIV testing and a 44% increase in the uptake of the HIV prevention pill. That's the PEP, or is it PrEP? Yes. PrEP, right?
PrEP. Yeah.
PrEP.
PrEP. Pre-exposure prophylaxis.
Pre-exposure prophylaxis. I do believe that this is probably more well known to people who are maybe connected with someone who has gone through this, or maybe healthcare professionals. Please, could you explain the reason why you needed that increase in the uptake of the prevention pill? Because it does feel a little, what's the word? I don't want to use the word strange, but if, for instance, it was a pregnancy prevention pill, which women are more familiar with, maybe we might be on the same wavelength. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, no, thanks. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, great. So Titi, I think response to HIV, and especially in the prevention space, because I think it's important for us that I think the spaces for HIV control are I would see this as the awareness space, where you want to make sure that and educated on HIV, and then you get into the actual prevention space. And the pills currently available in pill form, which you take on a daily basis, HIV, and when you're not at risk, you can stop and not kind of medication is absolutely critical, and is one of HIV prevention, and it's critical because it's important in the control for HIV. And what we have seen, especially in the adolescent girls and young women, in prevention pill, the HIV prevention pill is not great. Has been low. People know about pregnancy and pregnancy prevention, family planning, right? But they don't know about PrEP. So our drive was really to increase that awareness, and especially looking at the younger age group, is to make sure that you bring it up in a way that they understand and relate to, so that they understand the importance of this. And that is and we want to see as many girls understand and be able to of acquiring HIV and making the right decision to say, look, I'm at risk of PrEP is for me. I need to take PrEP. And interestingly, and what's exciting, there are other forms of the prevention. For example, the World Health Organization just recently then announced that they utilized for prevention, and so that's coming up. And so instead of taking a pill every day, once every 2 months, for example, which is great. There is example that's available, but the important message here is that ability to control and be able to say, look, I might be I don't know what my partner is doing. I'm not using. We encourage people to continue using. HIV is not the only infection that you can get from unprotected sexual intercourse, for example, STIs. But from an HIV point, the ability to say, I don't know who my partner is. I don't know if I'm safe. So let me take the pill to prevent myself from getting it.
So this is about giving, especially the young ladies, a choice. This pill is only for, is it only for ladies? Is it only for
No,
ladies that, for both?
no, it's not for ladies. So this is a pill that can be used by anyone and everyone.
Okay.
As I said, in facilities, in the communities is available. But as I said, because HIV and the different populations, it's also important to target those where the disease is not really or has not been controlled as much.
Okay, so your target audience is 20 to 24-year-old females. Well, for that campaign that you did last year, apparently, so we're told to take a lot of things. We're told to take a multivitamin. We're told to get immunized against this, and then there's a vaccine against that. How soon, God forbid, I'm thinking about my own kids now. How soon do you think it could be, if we don't nip it in the bud, could it be that PrEP or prevention or pre-exposure medication will be needed for everyone?
I mean, why PrEP is so good, I say so understanding that, well, what's good for one person might not be good for them is really good, as I said earlier, is that it's not lifelong. Okay? It's important for you, so what we want to do is to be able as an individual to take that next step and say, and understand our own risk profile. I'm at risk. So for the current available PrEP tablets, right? If you are going to be at risk for it to work, you need for at least 7 days continuously. So if you're going to stop, then you make sure that you can protect sex for 7 days, or you make sure that you have taken it, and then it becomes fully effective. And so that's important for us to note. I don't think everyone would need to be taking PrEP, because like I said, if I'm at risk, if I'm not exposed, then I don't need to take it. The moment I think I take it, and the ability to cycle on and off PrEP, it's always difficult for people to take medication for. We find that it's possible, but it's much more difficult, especially when.
So I guess the key here is to help people understand that despite the fact that it's an epidemic, it is preventable, and with all your work at Shout It Now, you've been able to see some impact. But there is this issue of stigma when discussing these things. I know you've had a campaign focused on normalizing these sexual conversations. How did that go?
I want to touch on this issue of stigma and then go into the campaign, Titi, because I think one of the biggest fight in the HIV space is that fight against stigma. In HIV, despite us having been in this space for still existent, because of course when HIV started and was viewed in a certain light, and viewed as a disease that's afflicting people, okay, and so that stigma has followed up, is there until people don't get tested because they're scared of what the next person will say and think about me if I get HIV positive. They don't go and get treatment because they're worried. What are HIV treatment? What does that mean? They also don't come in to take PrEP because, unfortunately, some people view it as someone taking PrEP is on treatment. So that's bad. So our fight against stigma really involves ensuring that continue to enforce and raise reinforce the messages on HIV, the positive messages, and so that people understand. We have had a very long journey. We have seen a lot of face, and so there is a lot of light at the end of the tunnel, and understand that any HIV. And so our campaign was really aimed at making sure that we have those we can freely talk about HIV and sexuality in a language our audience can relate to, and then make decisions based on the facts, sharing the facts in a manner that our clients and audience understand. And of the challenges we've had before is that as medical people, global people, our own language, and definitely it's always difficult for people to relate. And
I know that there are probably so many people who would like to ask questions and reach out to you probably later on. Is this your name on LinkedIn? That's
yes.
Dr. Albert Machinda?
Is on LinkedIn, and you can also get us started now on Instagram and other social media platforms.
All right, then. I have to say a big thank you to you for coming to talk to us about this. It does feel like an extremely sensitive issue, but it does feel like there is light at the end of the tunnel if what you say about the last impact during August to October was quite 44% increase. That's very, very important. So hopefully this message is going out to someone who needed to hear it. The HIV is real. It always has been, and it's still out there. Of course, with this issue of drug abuse, sharing of needles and the like is still going on. And drug abuse is another epidemic that it is worthy of discussing as well. And would like to invite you one of these days to come back and talk to us sometime soon.
Always my pleasure.
All right, then. Thank you so much for joining us. If you are wondering who we've been speaking with, Dr. Albert Machinda is a leader in global and public health with over 15 years of experience providing strategic oversight and strategic oversight to large and complex national programs in Southern Africa. And as a medical practitioner and epidemiologist, he is also an expert in HIV and sexual reproductive health programming. Thank you so much for joining us on the interview. Of course, you can reach out to us with the information that is on your screen right now. All right. And of course, we'll be bringing some more amazing conversations your way sometime soon. My name one more time is Titi Oyinsan, and it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for listening. Bye.